You're watching the Battered Fans Network.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 20 of the Battered MLS Fans Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Granada, and alongside me at the moment, I have three other battered MLS fans, and we'll have a fourth coming in soon. But we are talking about teams that matter, teams that have something to play for, teams that are still in the playoffs, Eastern Conference playoffs. And let's start from my left to your right, Mr. Tommy One Time from the ATL. How are you doing, sir?
I'm still flying high. I don't want to bring you down. But okay. Your sadness has brought me happiness, so I'm doing great.
There's a reason why we call this the Battered MLS Fans. Lewis, first time ever on the Battered Network, right? Because we do a few different shows. First time ever on the Battered Network. Lewis from Loud and Proud, Orlando City Pod. What's going on, man?
And welcome. Well, excited to be here. Thank you, Daniel. Hello to Tommy and Michael and everybody watching. Excited, man. And, it's a rivalry game. Against Atlanta. We have to show why we're the best team in Florida, and it's do or die. And I think Orlando is going to try to steal some of the thunder from Atlanta and the whole elimination from Messi, and then kind of our friends in the South kind of show them why Florida is purple. That's it.
I'm very interested to get into that conversation. And then Michael from NYCFC Blue City Radio. Not your first time. You've been here a few times. What's going on, Mike?
I'm excited. It's nice to be part of this show. And look, we all got to admit, the Hudson River Derby is the only game that matters this weekend, right?
I mean, on the East Coast, it's probably the more intriguing one. We'll get into that in a second. But we do have a fifth person on here, and let me bring him on. Bob, what's going on from the Designated Pundits and my Red Bulls representative? What's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing? Just a great night. Glad to be here. Thank you again for bringing me on. I keep forgetting where my camera is today. So I'm really excited to talk about some soccer today. Conference semifinals. The door is open, and I think that it's one of the exciting times because any one of these teams can go on to the final. So
wide open.
Really exciting. Yeah, wide open.
Bob, and for those of you that don't know, Bob is big on the betting circuit. He go ahead, a lot of shows, go ahead giving people advice on how to bet. Bob, before
he's won me some money. He's got me some. He's won me some money before. So thank you, Bob.
I know. Bob's the go-to, so make sure you see Bob. But before the playoffs started, if I would have told you I was going to have this show for the semifinals, did you think at all that we would have no representative from Columbus, Cincinnati? I mean, technically I'm from Inter Miami, but I'm not talking about Inter Miami either. Like, did you think any chance of everybody's bracket was busted?
Yeah, no, I mean, Cincinnati should not have been on anyone's list. That should have been very obvious to everyone else. It was super obvious to me the whole season long. They were frauds as they were, and they got sent out accordingly. But no, Columbus, very, very surprising that they're not going to be here. Miami, a little bit surprised they're not going to be here. Although I think they were really exposed in Atlanta. So, here we are.
Bob told me to bet my entire 401k on Atlanta, but I didn't listen to him.
Maybe in Mercedes-Benz, but not that third game. But whatever, we'll get into that's old news. But the news of the last 24 hours. Well, I'm going to keep it on Inter Miami for a second. Before we get into the playoffs, I did want to touch on one thing. The news over the last 24 hours, Tata Martino out as coach of Inter Miami. Caught me by surprise. I thought that he should keep his job, but after the way they got eliminated, losing 2 out of 3, I thought that was a fireable offense, and that if they let him go, I was also okay with it. I have no idea who they plan on replacing him with, but just curious, quick around the horn. We don't have to get too deep into it, but just kind of curious. And I'll start with Tommy because he is a Tata lover from his Atlanta days. Were you surprised, and what do you think of the whole move?
I mean, when he left Atlanta, it was to spend more time with his family, right? Going and coaching Mexico, it was going to be less travel for him, and that made him happy here. And Miami has got to be a rough team to manage, right? Because you're not just a U.S. team, right? You're international with Messi. and the harassment I at least seen on your podcasts, right, of just the Tata hate from, and wasn't it was the preseason. We talked about this before the show went on. Like, remember the rough start to the preseason? You were already seeing Tata out in the preseason.
Oh yeah.
So add all that pressure onto it, right? And you're getting, it's not just Mexico that's hating you. It's not just Atlanta that's hating you. It's the whole world and anyone that likes Messi that's hating you. So the pressure on top of that, man, that's got to be a hard job.
I am 100% with you. And look, again, I understand why. And this has to be the least desirable job in the MLS. Like, you either win it all or you're a loser. Michael, any thoughts on Tata being shown the door?
Yeah.
Are you surprised?
I'm definitely surprised. The reporting I saw was that it was almost mutual. Is there a clarification that he was fired?
Not yet. There's a press conference on Friday. Supposedly it's personal reasons he's choosing to go. A lot of people down here assume that it was we'll let you leave on your terms or we'll publicly fire you. So a lot of people down here assume that that's what's happening. But nothing official has come out yet. But there is a press conference scheduled for Friday. So
I guess the biggest question for you guys is, which players came because of Messi and because of Tata, and is that going to be something that they can maintain? Suarez, I'll give Suarez as probably a perfect example. I think Suarez wanted to come for Messi, but Tata was able to. He had that leash where he could play Messi and Suarez at the same time. Neither one of them really had to defend. You bring in another coach that might feel more pressure. You just talked about the pressure of that job. I think it's going to be a coach that's going to come in and make some radical decisions. That's going to upset some veteran players that are going to just be like, hey, you know what? I'm done with this.
I honestly think that whoever comes will be somebody that has some type of history with Messi. And that's just what we're thinking. Lewis, I'm sure. What are you thinking over there in Orlando? I'm sure you guys were happy to see some dysfunction down here.
We weren't expecting so much happiness coming, but definitely I feel like when it comes to Tata Martino, his soccer has been pretty. He plays the Paraguayan style, and sometimes that can in the MLS is being a very physical league, a league in which kind of Atlanta's shown by showing physicality, showing speed on the wings, and catching them in a bad night. They can definitely. Sting and hurt you. I feel like Tata, it's probably bound to happen. I think he feels more comfortable going into Mexico. I heard some rumors about Chivas getting in line for him already. And I feel like like a lot of people here said, I feel like Messi is going to have to give the blessing to whoever's coming next. I think Messi is a deciding factor. And I think the reason why all these players, even the young kids that came to Inter, it was really not for Tata. I think it was for Messi. It was
for Messi, for sure.
Yeah. And so I believe, it's going to be maybe, I know right now the rumors down south is Mascherano, Xavi, and which are young coaches with a definitely not the baggage as Tata has, winning championships in Paraguay, winning championships in Spain. But these are coaches that I feel like they could adapt in the MLS hemisphere, and it would be fun to see them play. It would be cool to see Xavi at Inter. I think it'll make sense.
Down here, it's almost like a foregone conclusion. Everybody's just assuming that it's going to be Xavi Hernandez. That's what just everybody's assumption that's who it's going to be. We haven't heard anything official, obviously, but that's what the assumption down here from everybody is. And Bob, I'll end it with you before we jump into the Hudson Derby. Surprised by the Tata, and also the snub. He didn't win Coach of the Year, and I thought that he was a shoo-in for that.
I mean, I was arguing with you that he should not have been on there. I would have gone the Greg Vanney way personally. But can't hit on Wilfred Nancy because he was the first time in Major League Soccer, probably in a long time, that he was very much courted by a team. Like they wanted their coach and they got him. They took him away from Canada. So like to see that. I'm a little bit surprised.
Got swept out of the first round.
I really want to see if Tata was really mutual. If it was mutual, like he was deciding to leave, then it's like, okay, that's kind of a blemish. Like the going's getting tough now, and now you're walking away. If he was getting fired, that's just actually what I expect. But it's really just the way that they lost. There's no shame in losing in a weird knockout no aggregate kind of strange format. But there is shame in going down against a team when you're buying everyone money can do, and you're stretching the rules in every way, and you're playing a team that just let Barco, Sosa, Robinson, all these guys walk, and then mid-season, Giacomakis, Thiago Almada, it's how it's done for me, and you can't lose to a team that's in that place. Like, Atlanta's supposed to be rebuilding. Did anyone, Tommy, did you know that? Like, can you let them know for this weekend how you're rebuilding right now? Because they are gas pedal to the floor right now.
One DP. We have one DP, one legit one on this team. It's shocking. Like, all the teams that we've said that probably should have made it this far, they didn't.
And Atlanta probably wouldn't have beaten anyone else on the other side of the bracket. Like, Atlanta's been faced off specifically against the teams that they could beat, and they could do it again this weekend.
On our show, I was constantly saying, because everybody's like, if we don't win the MLS Cup, it's a failure. And I said, look, with one game eliminations, you can't say it. It all depends on how it goes down. It could be a random penalty kick, a red card, but that wasn't the case. To lose 2 out of 3, fireable offense, even though I think I would have been okay with him coming back. But I understand if they didn't feel that way, and I'm okay with it. Now, I just want to say real quick, Brad Guzan plays like he did against Miami, against anybody, and they have a chance to beat anybody in any bracket because he played out of his mind. Because Miami should have won that third game, in my opinion, but he played out of his mind the way he did it that first game. But whatever, that's enough Miami talk. Miami is a pointless team to talk about because they have no meaningful games playing. They are completely – I'm going to keep my words to myself. So let's get to some teams that actually do matter right now. And that is Hudson Derby, New York versus New York, New Jersey. And I was like, Bob, you're on the middle of the screen, so let's start with you. Red Bulls swept Columbus.
Yeah, we did.
That, to me, was the surprise of the first round because even though Miami losing is a surprise, the fact that Columbus couldn't get one game and then you had that wild penalty shootout, it was exciting. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was the NYCFC one that was crazy. But regardless, the Red Bulls shocked everybody by sweeping Columbus. How are you feeling going into this Hudson Derby? Because you guys have had a lot of success against NYCFC from what's it? They call it the Red Wedding Massacre, 7-0. And you guys have met also in the playoffs.
A few years ago. A few different regime changes since then. But
2016.
We'll still talk about that if you want to, Michael. I mean, I'd love to rehash that again.
And how many times have you guys met in the playoffs?
Never in the playoffs.
Never in the playoffs.
Never. No. Oh, okay. There you go. So how are you feeling?
The two have never met in the playoffs, but Red Bull are 4-0 in elimination games against NYCFC. That is all outside of MLS play.
Well, like Open Cup and stuff.
Open Cup, stuff like that, yeah. I'm feeling really good. Now, the problem is I don't like playing soccer on a baseball field. And I know Michael's like ears are ringing because of, it's just become the low hanging fruit to make fun of. But I counted out the throw-ins, the set pieces, and the stoppages from last time that they played at home. And it was over 95, over a stoppage a minute for the time that they were on the field playing soccer. That is really gross. And it's just not soccer. Can Red Bull play that style? I guess they could. I mean, last year when they were playing a sloppy press, which is what I called what they did last year, like a lot of fouls, a lot of fouling, not a very mature press like I feel like they do now, where they're steering their opponent. They were just hammering everyone, kicking feet out from under guys. They can play that style of play too, although we haven't seen it this year. So I'm feeling overall good. But the thing I'm really feeling good about is Emil Forsberg being back on the field for this team. And as much as I talk about him, we don't say enough about Emil Forsberg. I mean, this is a guy who was fouled. He's going to take a penalty in a playoff game against Columbus. They're doing that stupid thing, which I hate, crowding the box and trying to delay and ice the guy. He was balancing the soccer ball on his nose for the fans and getting cheers for it. He is cool. He has played and scored in Champions League. He has played and scored in the World Cup. He has played and scored in the Euro. He has played and scored everywhere on the planet. And he needs to start getting the respect that Lucho Acosta gets, that Evander gets, because he is that quality, if not even better. I know he didn't contribute 30 goals this year, but he is absolutely that style of player. He was a name before he came to Major League Soccer. And when you look at the stats, Emil Forsberg, when he's on the field playing 45 minutes or more, Red Bull is 10 wins, 4 draws, 2 losses this season. When Emil Forsberg is not on the field for at least a half of play, 2 wins, 11 draws, 7 losses. that's the number. That's exactly what you would expect with Lucho Acosta. That's what you would expect with Evander. That's what you would expect with some of the other top tier number 10s on the field. It's just a different team when he's on the field, and he got back to health at a really, really good time. And, this team just pushed right through the playoffs. I don't want to play this game I would rather play in a neutral location, like any soccer field on the planet, or on any other planet for that matter. So I think that the advantage for New York City is 100% going to be the size of the pitch, the play style, all those other factors. If we take the talent of the players in the scheme of the system, I would take Red Bull 9 times out of 10. NYCFC's had our card this year, but those were not teams with Emil Forsberg. That makes all the difference.
They had their biggest win against the Red Bulls, I think, in the history, right? That 5-1,
5-1, yeah.
Last game.
Yeah,
that was
one. If you played that game 10 more times, you wouldn't get the same result. It was just sloppy back passing, a goalie just taking a nap. Michael.
No, I agree with you 100%. The 5-1 game, Emil Forsberg didn't start, and you could see the NYCFC went into halftime 4-1 up in that game. The scoring one goal late in stoppage time to put that one away. So Forsberg coming on almost was asking too much for him to try to come on and change the tilt. But I agree with the stats. He's the guy that we're worried about. But from an NYCFC perspective, we have James Sands, who's quite arguably one of the better sixes in the league. He's a guy who can shut down opposing 10s. He's done it all season. And that's where we are hoping that we get our strength from as far as strength through defense. The game that was played at Citi Field earlier this season, it was a 2-1 win for NYCFC, and it was a guy who hadn't scored many goals all season, even though he's supposed to be the number 9, getting a late goal to turn that result. So Citi Field is not ideal. I don't disagree. It's where the game is going to get played. NYCFC.
It's a little wider than Yankee Stadium, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and quite honestly, the sight lines are not as bad because in Citi Field you have that one. It would be if you're facing if you're in one goal, it's on your left side. You have the entire wall, which is perpendicular, which is parallel to the field. So the sight lines are only poor on one side of the field, but it is not traditional. It's definitely going to screw with some people. It's got some it's got its irregularities, and that's something we can't argue about. But NYCFC fans feel good. We're the home team. We're coming in. We feel hot, and we had one other game where Red Bull defeating Columbus so early. It's one of those things where sometimes you don't want to win that early because how soft is the team going to be? What did Sandro Schwartz do to keep this team edgy and ready for this matchup coming on Saturday?
Mike, Alonso Martinez, I think he is the best player that nobody talks about in the MLS. Nobody talks about Alonso Martinez. And he was scoring at a rate that was only bested by, I think, Messi.
Suarez and Messi. He was in between Suarez and Messi.
So
goals per 90.
Right. And nobody talks about the kid.
Well, here's part of the reason, because he's not a striker. He's a winger, and when he's very efficient. So when he gets his chances in the box, he will take them. But if you can't give him service, he is not going to create his own opportunities very often. Look at the 2 goals he scored in the 5-1 game. Both of them were chances where one was a back pass by Edelman, where he just outpaced Reyes. So he's got the speed to keep center backs. He's got to keep center backs have to be worried about his speed. But he's not going to body up. He's not a Tati Castellanos who's going to body up. He's not a Giakoumakis. He's not going to win a lot of duels. So he's very efficient in his shooting. But NYCFC has played many games where they just haven't been able to get him the ball. And NYCFC, Santi Rodriguez and Alonso Martinez have accounted for more than 50% of NYCFC goals.
I think Santi is like the key to the cog, no?
Yeah. So if Red Bull can shut down those 2, this could be NYCFC would struggle to score 1 goal with enough defense on those 2 players.
Mike, is there a prediction? I'm assuming that you're gonna go that you guys take the dub, but just out of curiosity, is there a prediction?
I mean, you're going to put me on the spot. I'll say it's going to be 2-1.
Okay.
NYCFC has struggled to keep the ball out of the net on the defensive side. They have, we don't even know who's going to be starting as the center back pairing. We have Justin Hack, who's a homegrown from Brooklyn, who was he's basically a box-to-box midfielder who is slotted into the center back position and played it well and played it in important games. And he played it in the 5-1 game against Red Bull and Red Bull Arena. But their starting center back, or the guy who they signed as their starting center back, Burke Risa, has not been fit, and they don't have a lot of depth there. So that's been the biggest question. So Matt Freese has been outstanding.
Yeah, Mr. Freese, yeah.
He's got to be. I'm surprised he wasn't in the final three for goalkeeper of the year. But despite him, and again, just like Guzan played amazingly in the Atlanta game, Freese definitely kept us in that game 3 in Cincy. So that's what I'd go. I'd go with the 2-1 just to hope that NYCFC can get more than one goal. And we know we're probably going to concede at least one.
Bob,
yeah.
The Red Bulls before the Columbus series, did they win only 2 out of their last 20 games in all competitions?
Yeah, probably. I don't know the number, but that sounds about right. Yeah, it was abysmal. However, there were only 3 or 4 losses in that span, too.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of draws. I was looking, there's a lot of draws.
Yeah.
So going into this game, how are you feeling?
I don't know really what to expect. I think that it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think Red Bull does have the capability to play more defensive, and I think that that's going to happen in this one. Low-scoring game is going to favor Red Bulls. My official play when I was on the BetUS show earlier this week was actually Red Bull to win either half at -110. Like, this could be, 2 goals for NYCFC in the first half, 1 goal for Red Bull in the second, and we cash out, something like that. So that was my official play. And then Emil Forsberg as a anytime goal scorer was +250. This is a guy who scored every 100 minutes so far this season. That number should be a lot closer to like +180, something like that. So you're getting like 60, 70 cents on something that you really shouldn't be. So those were my official picks. I'm cautiously optimistic that Red Bull can play a coherent game. I don't think there's a team right now that Red Bull would say we don't want to play them. You talked about Emil Forsberg shutting him down. Like Sands and Parks, those are the 2 guys that Red Bulls are afraid of. Like there's no one else on the field that they're like, this guy we got to hone in on. It's that. And I've been confident with Sandro Schwartz. He's changed the game plan. Look, the one game he goes out in like a 4-2-2-2. The next week he's got a 5-man back line with like 2 like hybrid wingers running up and down the field. Like, okay, so let's say Parks and Sands clog up the center of the field. I have faith in John Tolkien to shuttle the ball up around the outside like he's like to do. But that's going to leave the team exposed. So like, all these different scenarios are going around in my head. High scoring game favors New York City. Low scoring game favors Red Bull. I just think that the first 3 games this weekend are going to be really tight. And I think that favors Red Bull. A draw, maybe, draw no bet +248, something like that is what I'm looking at. I just don't think the betting odds really reflect the reality right now. NYCFC, incredible at home. And that's, you don't want to be there anytime.
Far and away the best home team in the league. And the biggest, I guess, home field advantage because of the size of the pitch. And let me just get real quick. Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
I just want to say one thing that most people, if you're not paying attention, if you're not in the New York area, don't know about this game. City Field is currently hosting a circus. So NYCFC is capped at 25. Actually, it was originally 22,500. They were able to open additional seating to get it to 25,000. So look, I gotta take my lumps, and that's why I'm bringing it up.
But why does that affect the attendance?
It's in the parking lot.
No idea.
It's in the parking lot. They don't know where to put anyone.
But I think the 200 level, those suites they've reserved or they've allotted out for certain things. So from what we understand, they're not selling any 200 level tickets. So it's either the lower bowl or in the upper deck. And the upper deck, you can't see the field in some of those seats because of the way the stadium is built for baseball. So you're supposed to see home plate, not the goals. So that's the one thing I would say. Like, I'm taking my lumps. The fact is, where you think that this could be an energetic, think about Mercedes-Benz with 60,000 in there for a playoff game. It'd be a place you wouldn't want to play. This is going to be this atmosphere is going to be tempered by the chaos of a circus.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, if it's in the parking lot, I mean, people could still take the 7 line. Like I don't know. I'm surprised. Wow, that's wild. I was not aware of that. Thank you for that. And so just real quick before we jump off the Hudson Derby, Lewis, as a I mean, you have no dog in the pony. What are you thinking as far as the Hudson River Derby? Who do you want to play in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I mean, if I have to play somebody, I would love to be NYCFC for sure. I mean, I think the rivalry is brewing. Yeah, the history. I mean, think about it. Orlando is a built team. Is a organization that came from USL, and so it has a grassroots beginnings in soccer, especially in Florida. And
yeah, but then you started.
We were pretty much told in order for you to have the franchise, you have to have a soccer specific stadium. And that happened. And then NYCFC still, I think it's November 20th, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, still doesn't have a soccer specific stadium. So, it is something that, it stings, because the league picks their darlings every season. One season's going to be LAFC. 2 years back, it was NYCFC. Now it's Inter. At some point, it will be Atlanta again. And it's gonna happen now. And so
it's never gonna be Orlando.
I would love for it to be NYCFC just for the rivalry.
Okay. Do you think they'll win?
I mean, I think it's gonna be tough. I think Red Bulls have the edge because of Forsberg. I think also one person that they don't talk too much, but is Lewis Morgan. I mean, he played in Inter.
That's my guy.
And Lewis Morgan. Lewis Morgan, when he's turned on a decisive game, he can definitely turn the game around. So, but NYCFC has a player that is very emotionally, definitely ingrained into their team, which is the Costa Rican guy Martinez. He comes from Lomel, and he wasn't doing too hot there. NYCFC gave him a chance, and boom, he exploded. And I think the partnership they got on the wing, it's phenomenal. So, if it was me, NYCFC for sure. But I think the Rebels are going to give him a fight.
Okay. And then Tommy, we'll end it with you before we jump into Atlanta, Orlando. What do you think, NYCFC or the Red Bulls?
The Red Bulls, and there's just one reason. I cannot watch New York FC games in baseball stadiums. It feels like I've taken too many gummies when I'm watching it, because when you watch it on TV, you're trying to figure out where they are at in the field. And as many times as I watch it, I'm like, all right, where's third base? Where's center field? And and how long you watch it, you still get confused every time. With that said, the home field advantage for New York FC is just so crazy, right? Atlanta lost to them a few years ago in the playoffs, and then New York ended up winning MLS Cup. I don't like that field at all. It's just not fun to watch, and I would like to get them knocked out as soon as possible. So even if Atlanta does not advance, I do not have to watch another game at a baseball stadium. No offense, Michael.
Well, NYCFC has home field throughout the Eastern Conference, right? If they make it, so
no, Orlando has.
Orlando's the highest. Orlando's the third seed.
Yeah, we're fourth.
Orlando's fourth.
You're fourth. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Cincinnati was third. I forget about Cincinnati because fuck right. Ohio. All right, Tommy. We got Tommy and Lewis. Orlando, Atlanta. Now, a lot of people were thinking that it was going to be the Florida Derby, but there is a rivalry here between Atlanta and Orlando, even though it's going to be the first time you guys ever play in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. So this is interesting. How are you feeling going into this game? You guys are playing with house money.
For sure. They did play in a U.S. Open Cup semifinal, which was a great game. I know your feelings for the Open Cup. I feel great about this. The rest, a lot of teams are complaining about the 2-week rest. For Atlanta United, it's huge for them. You had a lot of injuries going into it. Gregerson, our best center back, got hurt in game 2. Gives him a chance to get healthy. Tiare, as we watched on the watch long, I think your exact words were he spent more time on the pitch than he did actually standing up. Because he was down nonstop. He scored 2 goals, but he was just injured. And this team doesn't have a lot of depth. right? A lot of quality depth. So this 2 weeks have been able to give them a break. One thing I've been worrying about is momentum, right? Momentum is a real thing, and Atlanta United went through 4 games of nonstop momentum. I'm sorry, 5 games, right? They had to beat Orlando on decision day on a very questionable call at the end, right? The ref completely could have changed VAR could have completely changed the entire playoffs. It was like around the 90th minute that Orlando tied the game, and they went back and reviewed it and said it went off, I think, of his elbow. So that kept Atlanta.
Duncan McGuire. Yeah.
Yep. It kept them in the playoffs. Then they go to Montreal. They win that. Then they go in and win 2 out of 3 at Miami. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully they don't lose momentum. I think Rob Valentino's doing a good job of that. The other one, the other player, and in game 2, he came on late. Xande Silva scores the game winner late. This is a guy last year that was a fantastic player, right? He was consistent. He was fast. He caused chaos. He did not do that this entire season for Atlanta. He was nursing a foot injury all season. He was able to come back later in the year, and he started looking dangerous, right? He almost scored the tying goal in game 1 against Miami. I think all Miami fans, like, they were all had their hands on their head because it just went right by the net. And then he scores a game winner in game 2. You give this guy a little bit more opportunity to get healthier. If that's, they haven't said exactly what the injury is, but I'll still say 2 weeks of rest is going to help. If he could come in, I don't know if they'll start him or not, but if he can come in the 60th minute, play 35 or 30 minutes plus, stoppage, he can make a difference. And I've said he's going to be the X factor for this team for the rest of the playoffs.
All right, and like I said, and on top of that, you got nothing to lose. At this point, I think it's a successful season for Atlanta because they are literally in the process of a rebuild. Lewis, you guys do have a lot to lose. You guys have been the hottest team since July 1st, and I mean, I feel like Atlanta got to this hot start, beating you guys on decision day. How are you guys feeling going into this game?
Well, definitely the series this year is being won by Atlanta United, and that's one of the reasons why personally myself I respect Atlanta. There's a huge rivalry with them for sure. I feel
I didn't respect them at all going into it. So
yeah, I mean you have Miranchuk, 10 million euros. You have Saba. These are players that have definitely shown up, and I think Orlando would have been a little bit better in the standings if they would have won some of those games in the beginning of the season, because they were highly rated by all the pundits in the beginning of the season, saying, they're going to go in this run and you have all these players coming up, and that didn't happen. And so for Orlando to be 4th this year, actually was a little unexpected. Well, great for Oscar Pareja. To me, he's still a top 3 coach in the MLS for sure. Certainly, we are going there. It's do or die in front of probably a sold-out crowd at Interco. So it's gonna be crazy. I feel one of the things that they are going to do to Atlanta is trying to go for the high press with the double pivot. Wilder Cartagena did not play in those 2 games this year against Atlanta. So the double pivot for Orlando is going to come huge in this game. Wilder has something to prove for what happened with Peru and the national team. I feel like him and his partnership with Cesar is going to be important. Now, Orlando has depth, the depth that it's inconsistent, I do want to say, because in the beginning part of the season, a lot of people expected of Luis Muriel to be that, big $3 million signing, boom, and it didn't happen. So now what Luis Muriel does is coming in the second half. And when it comes to chance creation, you have him probably second to Martin Ojeda right now in chance creation for Orlando, coming off the second half. So, and that is probably one of the first big subs that Pareja does, probably in around the 70th minute. So, and that to me is something very important for this team coming up. The double pivot, if they're having a good game, they're going to dominate possession. But now, one thing that Atlanta has done perfectly is using the set pieces and the chances created to generate danger. And one thing about Orlando is they hold the possession, and they got to get better in finishing those plays. And I think that if you don't do that against Atlanta, their momentum is going to skyrocket. Whether they play away, whether they play at home. I mean, obviously Orlando is going to be definitely a hostile environment for, the fans are going to be definitely hostile. But
I heard that the wall sold out for the first time in a while.
Yeah, it's sold out. It's sold out, and again, I feel like it's like you said, it's a huge baggage for Orlando to get through against a team that we truly right now this season, everyone in Orlando respects ATL. I don't think there is a rivalry, but right now we feel like there's a lot of respect, mutual respect between the fan bases right now when it comes to this game coming up. And I think it's whoever strikes first, whoever scores the first goal is going to dominate the control of the game. And it's going to be for that particular coach, which we have also a lot of love for Rob Valentino. He was our first captain in USL. He won a lot of things with Orlando in USL. So, it's who's going to get the win. So Martin Ojeda, huge part for Orlando. 9 important chances created this whole entire season for Orlando City. Somebody that has definitely honed the number 10 position. So if they turn on, which I think the whole fan base and the whole city is right behind them, Atlanta's going to have a tough time because sometimes their defense may be a little flimsy when it comes to getting hit in the counter through the wings or through the middle, which is something that Orlando does very well. But again, Orlando is depending on Ramiro Enrique being hot, Duncan McGuire coming in, substitution hot, and Luis Muriel also coming in hot of a sub. So it's going to be I'm looking forward to this game, man. It's going to be a very evenly matched. I feel like we're very evenly matched right now, even though on paper Orlando may be it may look a little better because you have names like Muriel, Facundo Torres, you have all those players, but I feel like Atlanta has shown that they have players that can also cause a lot of danger. So it's going to be exciting.
I can't imagine that Brad Guzan stands on his head again like he did against Miami for a third or fourth time. But if he does, I'd give Atlanta a punching chance. Before I get to Lewis and Tommy's predictions, let me go to Bob and Mike. I mean, you guys might play one of these two teams in the Eastern Conference Finals if you make it. What's your prediction for the Atlanta?
Give us Atlanta. Give us Atlanta.
Man. Really?
We got to score to settle with Atlanta. That's the real rivalry. You guys are talking about all the fake rivalries here. Red Bull, Atlanta. That's the guys. That's who we want because all these playoff wins, all these supporter shields, they mean nothing. It's all about MLS Cup. And who stood in our way? Atlanta. All the times we beat Atlanta, the one time it mattered, we couldn't get the job done. And that season, we knew whoever coming out of the East was going to win MLS Cup. So I want to see Atlanta. I want a rematch of that match. That being said,
do you think they'll win?
No, I think they're going to get blown out. I think Orlando is, we had Luis on our show earlier this season doing the season previews, and we were like pumping them up. I'm like, this roster has no holes, man. This is one of the most talented rosters in Major League Soccer. I mean, Facundo Torres is easily one of the best wingers on the continent. I mean, it's next level type stuff. The fact that it took them as long as it did to put it together actually makes me believe in them and believe in my own eyes at the beginning of the season even more. I mean, since halfway through the season, what are they? I have the stats up here somewhere. They're 7 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss at home over the second half of the season, and that shows how bad they were at the beginning because they look like they're 500 at home, and it's not that case at all. 11 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses in the second half of the season overall, putting it together, and they have a DP slot, Luis Muriel, that hasn't really put it together so far this season. It's just that there's no holes. The back line depth scares me a little bit if you got to go to a second guy in any position. But with Pedro Galiz back there, El Popo, it doesn't matter. You got the guy, So
yeah, Brad Guzan right now is hot, but Galese comes with something to prove, so it's gonna be fun.
think with the exception of the LA Galaxy game, these are all going to be low scoring matches, which is going to kind of favor the away team because that's how you get kind of fluky wins. I could see this being like a 1-0, 2-0 result, but I could also see it being one of those 1 or 2-0 Orlando results that just feels like Atlanta was never in it. Although, even in the last 5 minutes, they're chucking balls into the box, just hoping to go to extra time. I would love to see Atlanta there, but I think Orlando is just way too talented of a team. At this point, I think Cinderella, strikes midnight at some point, and I think this is going to be it.
So Red Bulls want Atlanta, NYCFC. Do you want Orlando, right? 2015.
Yeah, they do.
No, we want Atlanta because then we get the host. We get to host Atlanta.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So who do you think ends up winning, though?
Well, look, I thought Orlando. I agree with Bob's stats. I thought going into the season, Orlando was going to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the East. They obviously turned out to be, 4. But there was that part at the beginning of the season where everyone was like, "What is going
really
on?
Bad, yeah.
Why can't they get this together?" They figured it out and they climbed the table and they won when it mattered. So let's see what happens. And obviously, NYCFC doesn't want to go down to Orlando. I'm sorry, because of that chaotic playoff game that happened. I can't remember when it was. 2019. When Schlegel jumped into net because
running on the wall,
got the red card in the penalty kick shootout, and we couldn't get our defender couldn't get a penalty kick past Schlegel. So look, there's bad blood there. I'd rather see Atlanta because that means NYCFC is hosting, and that means that's their best path to MLS Cup.
And unfortunately, we won't find out because they play the Sunday game. The Hudson Derby is on Saturday. But let me get it to the 2 podcasters that actually have something writing here. Luis, I'm assuming you feel pretty confident along with Bob and Mike. But what's your prediction for Sunday's game?
Well, I don't think. Again, I think it's going to be important for the double pivot to be on point. If they are on point, I feel they're going to control the mid. And Ivan Angulo needs to have another game like as he did in the first game against Charlotte. So if that pans out on that left flank and with Facu Torres still hot, because thanks to Bielsa, because every time Marcelo Bielsa doesn't play Facundo Torres, some reason he comes back on fire, scoring goals. He got 0 minutes with Uruguay, so we hoping that that's gonna motivate him to definitely go all off against Atlanta. So I'm gonna go for a 2-0 win. 1 win, probably a goal before the half, and then another goal in the 75th minute. Yeah, and then just park the bus, puppy special.
Well, I mean, that's what Atlanta did against Miami, and I would assume they're going to go the same route this week, try to play the counter. Tommy, I'll end it with you. Prediction, Atlanta, does this fairy tale story continue?
Well, I didn't know Bob was holding on to this for 6 years of the New York Red Bulls.
It's going to be a lot longer than that, baby.
if this happens next week, you just need to have me and him on, and we'll just yell at each other.
Well, that's the hope. That's the hope.
It looks like he needs it right now. I mean, he got real pumped for that.
It's cathartic.
You're welcome, I guess. Look, you talk about Cinderella stories, and this is definitely one, right? You've got another story that we haven't brought up is Dax McCarty, right? Like this is his last season. He announced it, mid-season. This was done, and he's one of the players that they're playing for, and. There's been a lot of talk about Rob and whether he's going to be the manager going forward, right? Because they've got that decision. And I saw some of the chat.
He has to
Tata.
Be. He has to be.
Come on.
Vieira isn't an option anymore. Oh, no.
Well,
but I'm talking about Vieira. Good.
Jim Curtin still definitely at one because Atlanta was interested in him. He turned them down when he was still with Philadelphia. Now that he's a free man, there's a good chance that they at least have that conversation, right? They have a little bit more in depth of a conversation. So I'm curious how that works there. With that said, I think that this team is still just running on magic at this point. They started figuring things out. This isn't former Atlanta teams in their glory were 1 or 2 man shows, right? Almiron and Joseph Martinez were a big part. I mean, the main part of them winning. The next year when they almost went back to MLS Cup, it was Joseph Martinez going on an insane scoring run. This team is getting results from everyone, right? It's not just one guy. It's not just Saba. That was the big name there, but Sleesh, Gregerson, Brooks Lennon before he got hurt. I do think that they run out eventually here on fumes, but I don't think it's going to be against Orlando here. I think they're going to end up winning, and then depending, the New York teams, I think they have maybe one win at New York or the Yankee Stadium and Red Bull Arena. I'm not sure if Atlanta has won there. I think they might have gotten one in the past couple years. I might be wrong on that, but before they had never won at Red Bull Arena. Bob, you might know that.
I didn't think it was that starkly different. But I believe you are correct for Major League Soccer play, although I think there might have been like a cup match or something that Atlanta had taken there. I would love to see that so much.
I mean, it would be fun. I mean, they've never fared well against New York teams in general, but
someone's in the chat
did it when it mattered.
Someone's in the chat saying that if that happens, they want to see me and you do a Netflix fight. And I said, I will take the Tyson money. I will take the knee. I will just put my hands up. You could punch us out of my gloves for 45 minutes. That would be fine with me.
I'm down. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. But I think it's 2-1. I think that the final score is 2-1 here. I think it's going to be close. I can't call Silva the X factor and not say that he scores here. So I think Saba and Silva end up scoring here. And my favorite movie is Mighty Ducks. So when you talk about Cinderella story, we're going to change it to Mighty Ducks. And we're going to keep quacking all the way up until the semifinals.
All right. So, I mean, obviously everybody thinks that their respective team has a chance to win. Honestly, I think it's going to end up being NYCFC Orlando. But I'm rooting for Atlanta. As weird as maybe people might think that sounds, they're the ones that eliminated Miami. Of course. But I obviously want Atlanta to beat Orlando, and I don't know. I think it would be a really cool story to see the 9th seed just randomly end up as the MLS champs. So I'm rooting for that story. But I'd like to thank everybody for joining and helping preview the Eastern Conference. Before we head out, please let everybody know where they can find you if they want to keep hearing about your respective teams, Red Bulls, NYCFC, Atlanta, Orlando, or Bob, all the stuff that you do.
Great. I'm a professional podcast guest at this point. So anyone who's watching, I'm available. I'll make that work the best I can. My podcast is called The Designated Pundits. We focus on Tuesday recaps and Thursday predictions, picks, the sports book stuff. And you can also find me on BetUS TV on the YouTube BetUS page. You can go to betus.com.pa and search it for it there. Official play, which I didn't get to say yet for the last match. Orlando and under 4.5 goals at plus 120. I needed a dance partner. I figured I'd take an astronomically high goal total on that one. So guys, thank you for tuning in, and thank you so much, Daniel. You got my number on speed dial, man, anytime.
Yeah, man, appreciate you. I really do. And maybe we'll be doing this again next week if you're available.
Let's hope.
Mike, let everybody know where they can catch you.
Hey, thanks for having me again. And no, I don't think Bob's going to be needed next week. So you hit me up. But I've been doing this since 2015, since NYCFC started. So I've been here since the beginning, and look forward to continuing to join the show and be part of it. And this week we had Kalen Carr on as our guest on the podcast. So check us out at Blue City Radio, wherever you find your podcast.
Nice. And fun fact, I was there for that first March 8th, 2015 match, NYCFC Orlando City. I didn't have a team, and that's when I got into the MLS, so I decided to ride with NYCFC until Miami got a team. So there you go. So I got some history with NYCFC, and I've always hated Orlando as it comes to Lewis, let everybody know where they can catch you if they want to hear some Orlando.
Yeah, check us out at Loud and Proud Orlando on YouTube, also on X at LP_podcast, also on Facebook, Loud and Proud Orlando. Yeah, for all your Orlando City, Orlando Pride news, updates, analysis, check us out. Thank you so much for the invite, Daniel. Also to see Bob again, to Tommy and Michael, and to everybody that joined into the pod today. Thank you.
No,
Yeah, and shout out to the Pride for making it to the final, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yep, it's historic. I mean, look, there's no other time, and again, that's why I think the backpack is so heavy for Orlando this year. After this whole beginning of the season that was garbage, and then now the comeback, having Atlanta being, with such edge, fighting to move through, well deservedly so, and then Orlando right now, the Pride being undefeated, probably winning the NWSL championship hopefully this weekend, and then having a sold out crowd against Atlanta, and then not winning it, right? I mean, if there's a moment that Orlando needs to definitely not choke and not get the L, it's in this moment. If they do it, it will be remembered. And I know fans over there are going to, in Orlando, are going to kind of start hearing the puppy out chants, with having, Curran available and all these other MLS coaches. But, if there's a time that it could work for Orlando, is this time. So hopefully it happens. If not, then, may the Mets band win. So appreciate it.
If you guys choke, it won't be as bad as the Inter Miami choke, I promise you.
Yep.
All right, and Tommy, last but not least, let everybody know that they can catch you.
Scarves and Spikes. After every game, we do post-game spaces. So for playing your team and you'd like to come in and have a chat with us and talk about it, you're more than welcome to join us. We have a website. We've got some good writers on there writing articles. And, check me out at Tommy ATL 96. And I'll just say, every playoffs that, of any team I watch, I'm always nervous about the game. I'm thinking about it all week. Being the 9th seed, not even supposed to be here, I've been sleeping well all week. So going into Sunday, I'm going to wake up. I'm feeling great. Like, there's no nervousness at all. This is the best type of playoff run that you could have as a fan.
Yep. No, I agree. I 100% agree. All right. And again, I appreciate everybody hanging out and joining us. If you're listening on audio, thank you for listening all the way to the end. Please leave us 5 stars, comment, review, all that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching all the way to the end. Please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. And as always, for those of you in the chat, we appreciate you hanging out with us for the last 52 minutes. As always, you guys are the best part of the show. And we'll be back in like 5 minutes. Same channel. We're going to have a panel of West Coast podcasters talking about, the West Coast semifinals. So if you're still in the mood for some West Coast footy, make sure that you join us in about 5 minutes. And to everybody that joined us, again, the guest and the chat, we appreciate you hanging out with us. And until the next one,